On behalf of all present here, I immensely welcome Comrade P.J. James, formerly a professor of economics and now being Politburo of CPI-ML Red Star. More than 3 decades, Comrade PT unraveled the trajectory of neo-colonialism in a Marxist-Leninist perspective. And he is the author of several works on neo-colonialism. Some of his masterpieces are Nehru to Rao, the neo-colonial process in India, MNC's plunder in India, GATT, WTO, the neo-colonial plunder at its zenith, the voluntary agencies a true mission, and the imperialism in its neo-colonial phase, and so on. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Before handing over the session to you, sir, we feel very much thankful to you because you have struggled a lot to make this session successful. We heard the news that you faced a lot of technical issues before for connecting this program. Thank you very much, sir. And also we feel so inspired. We feel also so inspired by your dedication towards your commitment. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I hand over the session to you, sir.
Okay, shall I start?
Yes, sir.
Friends and comrades. So today, the world is in a very critical situation. This novel coronavirus, that is COVID-19, which has actually reportedly originated from China, as a pandemic now, is spreading havoc on the whole world. And now the United States of America, which is supposed to be the leading country in the world even now that has become the epicenter of this pandemic. And as a result, now as per the latest reports that are coming in, more than 72,000 death toll in USA is now more than 72,000. And the pandemic is still continuing. And now certain predictions are coming. Of course, not from very serious sources, but by June, if the present trend continues, in USA the daily death toll will rise to 3,000 and the per day infection may rise to 200,000. So that is the prediction that is coming. A very horrific, frightening situation is in front of us. And the whole world, now I am not going into those the details of this issue, but one thing is very clear now. Unless campaigned by the US President Trump and his think tanks, now this coronavirus is not actually a bioweapon. Well-meaning scientists the world over, they have already pointed out that it is because of the corporate intervention in nature, the disruption in the ecological balance that has given rise to new viruses like the SARS virus in 2003 onward. And now these viruses are being mutated and they are coming in new forms. So it is the plunder of nature, the profit-motivated plunder of nature unleashed by corporate capital and the intervention in wildlife and in climate and the resulting climate catastrophe. So unless this corporate intervention is not curtailed, the possibility of new viruses are still there. So I'm not going into those details now. My concern is, what is the political economic trends, the emerging political economic trends in the present context? And we know that As per the latest information, in USA itself, it is that the US economy is actually already in the negative territory. That means the growth rate has already gone below zero. It has become negative, and the unemployment rate is so high. And at a global level, the estimate that was made by international agencies in April, according to them, a minimum $9 trillion. 1 trillion is 1 lakh crore. So $9 trillion loss will be there in the international economy. That means the combined GDP, gross domestic product of, if we accept that measurement, so the combined GDP of Japan and Germany, that much will be lost as a result of this pandemic. This is the initial estimate. And if the present trend continues, and if there is no let up in the spread of the virus, then the outcome will be very grave. And in USA, not only in USA, in Europe and all over the world, poverty is increasing, and according to international estimates, the absolute poor, the number of absolute poor in the world today, that is almost 80 crore, that may increase to 100 crore. And the unemployment rate, the initial unemployment estimate by ILO was that the global unemployment rate may increase up to 150 crore. But now the ILO is saying that almost half of the workforce in the world may go unemployed as a result of this pandemic. So the situation is very serious. And these issues, coupled with the ecological catastrophe, inequality, because in USA, the super rich, their income during this pandemic period alone has risen by more than 10%. While at a global level, the profit, the wealth accumulation by the the biggest billionaires, their income or their profit during this period is as much as that of the world's poorest half. So this is the range of inequality today. So in spite of this pandemic, the wealth of the upper echelons of society, the corporate billionaires are actually increasing, while the poorest, the deprived, the destitute are being pushed more and more down. So this is the situation. So in this context, what is the outcome? How this situation will continue? So many predictions are coming. So many theories, hypotheses are coming. Several economists, several political scientists, they have made several projections. Many analyses are there. My observation, I am making some observations here. And based on the present trends, what will be the political economic trends in the post-pandemic situation? On that question, first of all, we have to see that the United States, the US imperialism, which has been the supreme arbiter in the post-war neo-colonial period, now is in a declining stage. That is an established fact. Because on the eve of this COVID, by the end of 2019 itself, in terms of purchasing power parity, that is when you measure the GDP or income of a country in terms of the purchasing powers of their currencies. In terms of that, by the end of 2019 itself, US imperialism has been relegated to the second place. According to PPP estimates, that is purchasing power parity estimates, the GDP of China is more than $27 trillion, while that of USA is the second biggest power, still USA. Its GDP is more than $21 trillion. So that means there is a big gap between China and USA. Not only that, say in terms of global trade, now in 2000, in the year 2000, actually almost 80% of the world, countries of the world, 80% of the countries of the world, they were the trading partners of USA. That means 80% of the countries of the world had selected USA as their trading partner. But today that position is declined to 30%. While that of China, that is in the year 2000, China's international role in international trade was very insignificant compared with USA. But today China has ascended to, or its share, or the percentage of countries which is now having trade with China, that percentage has gone up to 60%. So USA is 30%, while that of China is 60%. And the volume of trade also, international trade, if you calculate in terms of the volume, then China's global trade volume is more than $4 trillion, while that of USA is only 80% of that. So this is the situation now. And say we know that not only the US economy is declining, the European, except Germany, the whole Europe is in a difficult position. And we know that because of the globalized international economy, this pandemic, this COVID has inflicted a heavy blow such that transport, travel, and all kinds of trade, labor, international, these global supply chains, global production. So as a result of that, both Europe and USA, the Western, that means the Western powers, except Germany probably. So all these are now in a declining stage. And as a result, what is going to happen is that because in the beginning, USA and US, especially Trump, they were saying that it is a Chinese virus, it is Kung flu. That was a racial comment. So that was the comment in the beginning. But now this tide is now turned against them. And also China is now leading. And as I earlier pointed out, the cohesion, already the Brexit question, because Britain has gone out of the European Union, totally gone out. And now because the pandemic, when it started in Italy, the European countries never came for its help. So Italy was forced to turn to China. So it was with China's help that Italy, a member of the European Union and a member of NATO, could overcome to that situation. So now Italy has become a solid bedrock, a member of the One Road, One Belt project of China, a project that is $1 trillion worth capital export. We know that in the post-war period, after the Second World War, when US imperialism was initiating the neo-colonial world order, you might have heard about the Marshall Plan that led to the reconstruction of Europe. Now this Belt and Road program of China is several times in terms of absolute volume of capital. It is much bigger than this that Marshall Plan that reconstructed Europe and which was led by USA. Now Italy has already become part of this Belt and Road program, and China, starting from Asia through West Asia and Africa, and this Belt and Road program has been now extended up to Latin America. So again, this RCP question, that means Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, where the ASEAN countries, the 10 ASEAN countries plus India has been gone out under American pressure, And China, this ASEAN and combining ASEAN and other 5 countries, now led by China is leading it. The biggest partner in that RCEP is now China. And it combines almost 1/3 of global GDP. Even if India is excluded, still 1/3 of global GDP. That's the size of that RCP combined. So there also China has established leadership, and this, as I mentioned, this One Road, One Belt program. So in such spheres, while China is advancing, USA is going down. So this is a point that we have to see in the post-pandemic situation. Because why I am stressing is because now, say in terms of, which I have already mentioned about this trade and other things, but in terms of other aspects also, when you come to the global political situation, US hold over the UN and its specialized agencies is going down. We know that for most of the post-war period, the United Nations was actually a rubber stamp of USA, we know. And most of the specialized agencies of UN were actually being supported by USA. US experts were leading it. US fund was the driving force behind it. But now the situation is changing. Because today, because the WHO, World Health Organization, was reluctant to toe the US line, to uphold the US approach to pandemic. So what happened? Trump has now suspended the funding of World Health Organization, $50 billion per annum. Now China has replaced it. Earlier, China was providing only $20 billion as its contribution. Now when USA had withdrawn, China entered into that place, and now China is giving an amount of $50 billion to World Health Organization. And now, as we know from reports, its Director General is taking a pro-China approach in several aspects. So this is a growing trend. And not only in this area, the most important one is in the sphere of oil. We know that the oil imperialism, the empire of oil, that started in the late 19th century, when capitalism was transforming into imperialism. At that time, the oil, the Standard Oil, which Lenin characterized as its leader, that biggest capitalist of that time, Rockefeller. Lenin characterized him as the international spider. Now, it was the oil economy, the geopolitics and economics connected with the oil, that made USA to have its hold over West Asia and its international clout, everything we know. But now, last week, as per information, in futures market of crude oil, its price has gone below zero. That means those who are purchasing oil, they must be given money. So this is the situation. So the oil economy is collapsing. New energy sources are coming. Solar, other non-conventional energy sources are coming to the sea. Vehicles are constructed accordingly. So now in that sphere also US imperialism is collapsing. Now the other case, dollar. So America, by the end of, I am not going into those details because of our time constraint. By the end of the Second World War, US imperialism, because now people are comparing this pandemic with the World War and the Great Depression. They say that the pandemic today is more severe. It is more severe than the Great Economic Depression and the World War Second, because even during the World War, war-oriented production was there. US imperialism was supplying whatever needed by the whole world, and not only war-oriented production, weapons, even materials, even other aspects also were supplied by US imperialism. So with that, USA became the richest country, and almost half of world GDP went under USA. Now today, what we are seeing today, US GDP has declined to 20% of world GDP. And USA had a 75% of gold stock with it. It was with that base that it put forward a dollar as the international currency. And now the dominance, the hegemony of this dollar is being threatened by the advancement in digital currency. Now the application of digitization, because we know that in the 20th century, there were no digital flows. Digital flows, data and data transfer, data trade, everything has assumed a prominence only in the 21st century. Of course, there were data processing was there, communication improvements were there, processing technologies were there, a new international division of labor, a new internationalization of production. Everything was there in the later half of the during the neoliberal period, the last 2 decades of the 20th century under neoliberalism. There was a global rearrangement of production through what is called a decomposing production into several stages. The cheap, the labor-intensive and ecologically harmful aspects of production were transferred to neo-colonial countries and dependent countries. And those areas where taxes are less or tax exemptions are there, tax havens are there. So corporates were transferring their economic activities to such areas. But today, with the turn of the 21st century, a new situation has come. That is, digitization has come to the forefront. And as a result of which has now become more important than global trade, more important than shipping lanes. So as a result of this digitization, digital technology, now everything is being changed. So with the application of digital technology, even China has now is becoming, or is creating its digital yuan. And with the application of blockchain technology and the role of dollar in international transactions can easily overcome with the application of these new technologies connected with digitization. And in that sense, in that area, China is advancing, because in the digital currency area, America is still far behind. Chinese companies, Tencent, Baidu, and WeChat, and Financial Cloud, this Alibaba sponsored corporate company. So all these are actively engaged in digitization, and they are now effectively competing with American companies such as Microsoft, Facebook, WhatsApp, and similar other companies. Even though they are still leading, still China is creating effective competition. So in that area, this news has come recently from Voice of America that this is a threatening factor to US imperialism, especially the role of dollar. Because dollar being the international currency, America can print any amount of dollar. It can purchase anything from the world. It can export capital. It can enter into war. So these possibilities are now threatening because of the application of digitization and the emergence of digital currencies. Especially China has taken several important steps in that area. Reports are coming. I'm not going into those technical aspects. So this also will be creating a problem for the dominance of USA in the present context and in the post-pandemic situation. One more point. Now you take the case of this defense, war area. That is the military question. Still, we know that 38% of the global investment, capital investment, expenditure is by US imperialism. And it has 800 military bases in 80 countries of the world. But here also, in spite of that, last week there was an event that in South China Sea, a naval ship of USA was forced to retreat from the South China Sea with the intervention of Chinese military, Chinese Navy. So things are changed. So in this context, the post-pandemic situation, when we discuss the global, international, political, economic situation, is, in my understanding, is that a situation is coming whereby this the contradiction between USA and China, the contradiction between US imperialism and Chinese imperialism for global hegemony is assuming new proportions, and as a result of this contradiction, new tensions are mounting not only in South China Sea, in other areas. So this will be a determining factor. The outcome of this contradiction, the outcome of this will be determining the post-pandemic situation, international political situation. Now coming to the present context, we know that, as I already mentioned, this new digital technology, this is coming as a major component in the post-pandemic situation. Because everything, we know that the whole world was in a frozen state. The whole world was in a standstill. But the only sphere, the only area that was fully working was internet and digitization. So most of the countries of the world were actually effectively using this digitization in the name of meeting, in the name of confronting the pandemic. Of course, in tracing, in tracking, in treating, these new technologies were effective. We cannot deny that fact. But along with that, and even in telemedicine, even in treatment also, because by application of artificial intelligence and digitization, now it is possible even to remotely you can, in remote people, those who are in the remote location, even their body temperature, their pulses, their oxygen level, everything can be measured through the application of artificial intelligence and digitization. So this has become an effective tool in fighting the pandemic, and that also has started from China, from Wuhan. Now we know that what is the outcome. Now take the case of India. You know that what is about this Arogya Setu. Now this Arogya Setu is as an app which is being used in India in the guise of fighting the pandemic. It is actually used for the political agenda, for the political purpose of the ruling regime. It is used as an e-pass. It is used for curtailing, for surveillance of the people. It is used for extending the powers of the state, for a deep state. Not only in India, in Israel, in many other countries, using this pandemic as a new situation, the state has become more powerful, more dictatorial, and even in our country also we know that now it has become mandatory, it has become compulsory on the part of even all employees, not only in the public sector, but even in the private sector, not only in the central government, even everywhere, even in the state government, people, they are also forced to compulsorily download these Arogya Setu app. And this will become, if you are not downloading it, then it will become a case of legal action also. Now it is against the constitutional principles, because there it is against the freedom of movement, because unless you are having an e-pass, you cannot enter Delhi. So such things are coming. There were discussions. And even if the COVID is over, these Arogya Setu will continue as an effective surveillance tool. So earlier we have seen that when the biometric based Aadhaar was developed, it was said that it is only optional. It is only for giving government services and payments to people. But now we know that it has become a mandatory, it has become a tool on the part of the government. Similarly, in the case of the Arogya Setu also, it has become an effective tool in the fascistization process. And it is becoming. Well-meaning people, human rights activists are coming against that. So this is not the case of India. So as a result of this pandemic, on the one hand, its application in medical science, medical technology, in the application of in dealing with the patients, in tracking them, and in treating them, it has its impact. But at the same time, under the guise of under the cover of this what is called this corona, these new apps, these new technologies are used for increasing the fascistization process. And along with that, a less noticed, but the most important one at the international level is connected with the impact on the working class. So because of this digitization, we know that digital relations of production, we say these people, those who are upholding the virtues of digitization, of course, we cannot live without that. But we must know that when you apply, instead of physical interaction, you can use digital interaction. Everything is there. But we must also know that these digital relations of production are actually a reflection of a manifestation of the corporate capitalist relations today. It is the property, it's a reflection of the property relations. There is what is called a digital divide. Those who are having no access to internet, because when you are not having a smartphone, you cannot download the Arogya Setu app. And if you are not downloading it, your citizenship right will be questioned, and you will be disenfranchised, and your citizenship rights itself will be questioned. So when you see this digitization process, it is also actually a replication of, it is a manifestation of what is the existing relations of production. Apart from that, the more important one is regarding its impact on the working class, because this digitization is now being used as a means to disrupt the organized working class itself, the collective bargaining for the working class. Because in the 19th century, when Marx said, it was Marx and Engels were, and the communist leaders were saying that working class should their collective bargaining power. The organized working class, the industrial proletariat, the international industrial proletariat. But now digitization and these digital tools, digital technologies are now used for disrupting, that means disorganizing, decentering the working class itself. The informal working class, the unorganized working class, the most wretched of the world, the migrants, the refugees, the slum dwellers, and all those who are below the poverty line. So their wages are going to be gone down, and even the organized workers are to be treated in a disorganized way. For example, home-based work, and in the name of these, in the name of applying these new technologies, in the post-pandemic situation, we know that home-based work will be increasing, and there will be e-services, and the travel will be reduced, video conferencing will be increasing. So many basic changes are going to happen in the world, and all these will have its repercussions, and the working class itself will be disorganized, and their organizational strength will be diluted, and the capitalists, the corporates will use this new technology, this digitization, for increasing their profit. And it will be for reducing, it will be for further decline, further reduction on the wages and the hard-earned earnings of the working class. This is a question, and a new division of labor, a new international division of labor, not only international, even nationally also. The post-corona situation will change the organization of production itself. The organization which workers were actually demanding their rights, their wages. So we have to see the new world order, the neoliberal. This is a neoliberal virus. So the impact of this neoliberal virus on the whole world, on the working class, on the oppressed, and on the vast majority of the people. So this is an important question that we have to discuss in the post-pandemic situation. So the world is changing. When we say that post-war, now we are saying post-COVID. So it is an epoch-making transformation, and the impact of these new technologies, and the way in which the state is going to become more authoritarian, more dictatorial, and how the working class is going to be affected, and how production is going to be reorganized, and how the new division of labor is coming, and how the surplus value is extracted more intensively from the working class through this digitization. All these are questions, and we have to study. We have to go through all these aspects in detail. So these are only, I am making some observations as the beginning. So on all these questions, we have to, and even we have to demand, we have to raise up, we have to stand, we have to put forward new demands. what, so on this digital question also. So the whole digitization, the whole digital technology which is now controlling from production to exchange, consumption, everything. So there these new intellectual property rights, the patent question, and the rights of the working class. So how these neoliberal, these a new offensive, how we can deal, how we can confront it with a counter offensive on the part of the working class through appropriate intervention, political intervention, especially when the superimposition, when this coercive imposition of policies are there. How we will counter it from a bottom-up approach with the people from below. How the most downtrodden, how the most exploited people can be organized. How we can overcome this oppression imposed by this digital divide, etc. So these are questions which we have to seriously discuss. And when we come to one or two points regarding India, so we know that Indian situation is very serious, because when we say that 100 crore people are going to be absolute poor, 40% of these will be from India, a country where even the informal working class, composed of the migrants, the self-employed, the unorganized workers. India, we know that more than 90% of the workforce is working in the unorganized sector. So what will be the effect of these post-corona developments on their life? These are very questions. And here the more than 75% of the national wealth, the national income generated is actually gobbled up by, is actually taken away by the upper 1% of the ruling class. And everything is for their profit accumulation. So every policy, even everything connected to tax exemptions, corporate, India is one of the lowest, having the lowest corporate tax rate in the world, and their accumulation is so high, such that, say, even from the budget every year during the past, if we take these last few years, there is we have to go through those budget documents to understand how much this corporate wealth transfer was there in every budget. So in the name of stimulus packages, in the name of rescue packages, more money, national wealth is transferred to their coffers, while the government has money for writing off the loans of these corporate debtors. Earlier, more than 6 lakh crore rupees were written off, and now during last week another 66,000, around 66,000 was written off, but there is no money for the poor people. Even food grains are rotten in food corporation godowns, and it is diverted for making sanitizer and alcohol, but poor people will not be given that, and the whole burden is put on them. So in terms of corruption, in terms of inequality, everywhere Indian economy is probably the worst in the country today. So the policies, these neoliberal policies, and the outcome of this pandemic, and the application of these, how this state is becoming more repressive, how pandemic is used as this lockdown is being used as a safe way to curtail, to keep the people under the fascist rule. All these are questions that we have to discuss. So because of time constraints, I am not going into those details. Let us have let us develop our understanding. Let us have a debate. Let us go through these facts, and let us derive political conclusions and appropriate organizational tasks which are required for intervening on the part of the people for a pro-people, a pro-nature, a pro-women development policy. So from that perspective, we have to work out, we have to put forward an alternative. Thank you.